It begins not with a dramatic confrontation or a final crushing blow, but in the quiet spaces between the words. It's a shift so gradual it feels like the slow changing of a season, where the warmth of summer doesn't vanish overnight but seeps away day by day. Until you wake up one morning to a chill you can't quite place, you sense it before you have any real evidence to prove it a change in the emotional atmosphere. A barely perceptible drop in pressure that signals a coming storm, or perhaps a quiet drought. This is the phase of uneasy intuition, where the reality you feel starts to diverge from the reality you're being shown. The first clues are not in what is said, but in what is left unsaid. It's in the pauses between texts that stretch from minutes into hours. Not because she's genuinely busy, but because the dopamine rush your messages once triggered has faded. The notification with your name on it no longer creates that little jolt of anticipation. You notice the lag, and your mind, trained on the rhythm of her previous eagerness, files it away as a data point. Then comes the tone, or rather, the leaching of tone from her voice. The warmth that once felt like a verbal embrace cools to a functional politeness. Her words might still be kind, but the music behind them is gone. The laughter that used to sound genuine and unforced now feels rehearsed. A social courtesy offered out of habit rather than joy. It's the difference between a shared joke and a polite acknowledgement of an attempt at one. Her curiosity, which once felt like an active, searching beam of light focused on your life. Your day, your thoughts, dims into a passive tolerance. She stops asking the follow-up questions. The how did that presentation go? Or what did your friend end up saying about it? That proved she was listening and invested, are replaced with a simple, that's nice, or glad it went well. The conversation becomes a series of statements and acknowledgments rather than a true back and forth. You find yourself carrying the entire weight of the interaction, pouring more and more energy in just to keep it afloat. While her contributions become lighter, more hollow, you are sharing information, but you are no longer sharing an experience in the beginning. The human mind is a master of rationalization. It seeks to explain away discomfort, to find a logical reason for the emotional dissonance. You become a detective trying to solve a case with no body, no crime scene, only a lingering feeling. You tell yourself a familiar story. She's under a lot of stress at work lately. She's just tired. She's going through a personal thing and needs space. You scroll back through your old message threads, reading exchanges from weeks or months ago, clinging to the evidence of how it used to be. You see the long paragraphs, the emojis, the excited plans, the I can't wait to see you texts, and you use this past evidence to soothe your present anxiety. You convince yourself this is a temporary dip, a rough patch, and that if you just stay consistent and patient, the woman you remember will come back around once this mysterious fog lifts. But deep down, beneath the layers of excuse-making and hope, a colder knowledge settles. You know? You feel the fundamental imbalance in the energy exchange. Conversations that used to flow like a river, meandering and easy, now feel like pushing a stone uphill. You notice how she used to proactively share details of her own day, offering little stories and snippets that invited you into her world? Now, when you ask about her day, the answer is often a vague. It was fine, or nothing much. A closed door where there used to be an open one. The shared language you built together, the inside jokes, the nicknames, the references starts to fall into disuse. A joke that would have made her snort laugh a month ago now only earns a faint smile. The nickname she coined for you is used less and less, until it disappears from her vocabulary entirely, replaced by your proper name, which suddenly feels distant. The truth, as painful as it is that when a woman's emotions begin to drift, whether toward another man, the idea of a different life, or simply away from you, her entire psychic orientation shifts. She doesn't do this out of malice. It's an organic, often unconscious process. The heart has its own gravity, and when it's pulled elsewhere, the whole system follows. She can't fake the genuine excitement because the neural pathways that lit up at the thought of you are now being rerouted. The emotional real estate you once occupied is being slowly vacated. You are feeling this quiet evacuation in real time. It's in the way she seems distracted when you're talking, her eyes glazing over as if she's composing a mental grocery list. It's in the way she's suddenly always available for a friend's crisis or a last-minute work obligation. But the plans the two of you make feel tentative, easily canceled. This is the great, quiet unraveling. It's not dramatic. There are no screaming matches, no tearful accusations. It is death by 1,000 tiny cuts of indifference. It's the gradual dimming of a light, so slow that your eyes adjust to the growing darkness without you realizing it. Until one day you look around and find yourself sitting in the shadows, wondering when the sun went out. And the worst part is, you felt it long before you could ever see it. The instinct to chase is a primal response to the threat of loss. It feels proactive, noble, even a testament to your commitment and the depth of your care. When you feel her slipping, the first and most natural impulse is to reach out, to grasp tighter, to pour more of yourself into the space between you and the desperate. Hope that your sheer volume of effort will fill the void she is creating. This is the trap, and it is one that ensnares almost every man who finds himself in this disorienting space. He mistakes her emotional withdrawal for a problem to be solved, a puzzle to be cracked with the right combination of words, gestures, and proven devotion. So you begin. You double down on compliments, ensuring she remembers she is beautiful, appreciated, wanted. You send longer, more thoughtful texts, carefully crafted paragraphs designed to showcase your depth, your loyalty, your unique understanding of her. You initiate plans with renewed vigor, trying to recreate the magic of earlier dates. To remind her of the laughter and the connection that once was so effortless. You might even find yourself making grander gestures, unexpected gifts, elaborate surprises, all in a frantic attempt to trigger the dopamine hit she once got from your presence. You are, in essence, trying to love her back into loving you. You operate on the unspoken belief that if she could just see how much you care, how hard you're trying, how good you've been to her, the scales will fall from her eyes and she will return to the woman she was. This is the critical error. The fundamental misreading of the situation. The issue is not a lack of data about your positive qualities. She knows you are loyal. She knows you are stable. She knows you treat her well. The problem is that her attraction is no longer operating on the axis of logic. It has shifted to the realm of pure emotion and feeling. Once she begins mentally comparing you to someone else, whether that someone is a real person or an idealized fantasy, your logical arguments for your own worth become irrelevant. You cannot reason with attraction. You cannot negotiate desire. You cannot present a PowerPoint presentation on your virtues and expect it to reignite a spark that has been extinguished by a shift in her emotional weather. In fact, your increased effort has the opposite of the intended effect. The very presence that was once a comfort now feels heavy to her. Your affection, which used to make her feel secure and cherished, begins to feel suffocating. The love you offer, which once grounded her, now feels like an obligation, a weight she must carry. This is because your chasing reframes the entire dynamic. It communicates, loud and clear, that you are aware of a deficit, that you feel you are losing her, and that you are working from a position of need. There is no magnetism in neediness. The energy of chasing is one of lack, and lack is repulsive to a feeling that is supposed to be based on abundance and mutual desire. Your attempts to prove your worth become, in her perception, confirmation that you know you're losing her. Every long text is a plea. Every overplanned date is a performance. Every extra compliment is a bid for validation. You have unwittingly handed her the scorecard, and she can see you are falling behind. Your value, which should be a quiet, self-evident fact, becomes something you are desperately trying to sell. And nothing devalues a product faster than the salesman's obvious fear that it won't be bought. You have abandoned the unspoken power of being the chosen and have instead become the salesman. And no one desires what they feel is being forced upon them. Furthermore, your chasing removes any mystery or challenge you once represented. You make yourself entirely available, emotionally and physically. There are no unanswered questions about your feelings. You are broadcasting them on a constant loop. There is no space for her to wonder about you, to miss you. to feel the slightest flicker of uncertainty that might prompt her to lean in. By filling every silence with your effort, you deny her the very emptiness that might have made her appreciate your presence. You become predictable, and predictability is the death of intrigue. The man who is always there, always trying, always explaining, becomes a piece of the furniture, comfortable, perhaps, but entirely taken for granted. In trying to hold on, you only accelerate the letting go. Your energy becomes a pressure that she instinctively recoils from. She pulls away further, cancels plans with more flimsy excuses, takes even longer to reply. Your chasing has not only failed to rekindle her interest, but it has also confirmed her subconscious belief that the grass is, indeed, greener elsewhere anywhere that doesn't carry this heavy weight of expectation and unspoken negotiation. The relationship transforms from a shared journey into a tug-of-war. With you pulling frantically on one end while she has already begun to let go of the rope, the tragedy is that your actions, born from a place of genuine love and fear of loss, are the very things that cement the loss you feared. You are pouring your entire self into a vessel that has already developed a crack, not realizing that the pressure of the pour is only widening the fracture, ensuring that everything you value will drain away all the faster. When the instinct to chase is screaming in your ears, and every fiber of your being is wired to fight for what you feel is slipping away, the most powerful response is the one that feels the most unnatural: stillness. This is not a passive surrender, nor is it the cold, punitive silence of the silent treatment. That is a weapon, born of anger and designed to inflict guilt. The silence we speak of here is something entirely different. It is a conscious, deliberate, and strategic withdrawal of your emotional investment. It is the quiet decision to stop, pouring your energy into a void and to instead reclaim it for yourself. This is not about giving up on her. It is about choosing yourself. It is the moment you trade panic for peace. This shift begins internally, long before it manifests externally. It is the mental pivot from asking, "How do I get her back?" to stating, "I will not participate in my own devaluation." This is a declaration of sovereignty over your own spirit. It is the recognition that your worth is not a subject for debate or a prize to be won in her internal court. It is a non-negotiable fact. When this internal foundation solidifies, your external actions naturally align. The long, pleading texts cease not because you are playing a game, but because you have nothing left to prove. The constant initiation of contact stops not to punish her, but because you are no longer waiting by the phone. You begin to fill the space she occupied with actions that rebuild your work, your health, your hobbies, your peace. You are not waiting for her to change. You are changing yourself. The immediate impact of this genuine detachment is profoundly disorienting to the dynamic you've both become accustomed to. She has been conditioned to expect a reaction. Her emotional withdrawal was, consciously or not, a test. She expected you to notice the distance and rush to bridge it. She anticipated the drama of your pursuit, the arguments, tearful conversations, the desperate attempts to fix things as the final, validating proof of your investment in her power. When you instead respond with a calm, unshakable silence, you pull the rug out from under this entire script. You do not provide the drama she expected. You give her nothing but a quiet, impenetrable composure. This silence becomes a loud, unanswered question in her mind. The validation she had taken for granted, the knowledge that your emotional state was tied to her actions, vanishes abruptly. The predictable rhythm of chase and retreat is broken. At first, she may feel a sense of relief, interpreting your silence as acceptance of the natural drift. But as days pass without the expected reaction, that relief curdles into confusion. Your absence begins to have a weight and a presence of its own. She starts to wonder, why isn't he chasing? Why isn't he angry? Why isn't he fighting for me? Your calmness becomes an anomaly her brain cannot easily categorize. It disrupts her entire perception of the power structure. The man she believed was orbiting her emotional sun has suddenly, and without explanation, shifted his own gravitational center. This is where the power dynamic truly begins to flip. Your silence is not a vacuum, it is a mirror. In the absence of your noise, your explanations, and your pleas, She is forced to sit with the consequences of her own detachment. She is left alone with the quiet reality she helped create. Is no longer a frantic man to blame, no emotional fire to put out, no performance to critique. There is only the quiet, and in that quiet she must finally confront her own feelings and actions. Your lack of reaction reflects back to her the emptiness of her own. It forces her to ask herself the questions you once asked. What is happening? Here, what do I actually want? This enforced reflection is the seed of returned curiosity. Nothing is more compelling to the human psyche than a mystery, and you have suddenly become one. By withdrawing your emotional energy, you make it scarce, and scarcity always increases perceived value. The attention she could once command on demand is no longer available. The reassurance she could summon with a cold text is gone. She begins to miss the energy you once provided, not necessarily because she wants you back, but because she cannot stand the loss of control. She starts checking your social media, replaying memories, analyzing your last conversations, searching for clues to explain your serene detachment. The energy she was no longer investing in you is now being spent trying to understand you. This process is not about manipulating her into returning. It is about reclaiming the balance that was lost. Your quiet detachment is magnetic, precisely, because it is rooted in a newfound strength, not in spite or strategy. It communicates a simple, unassailable truth. I see what is happening, and I choose peace. I am not angry. I am just done explaining myself to someone who has stopped listening. This calm composure elevates you to a level of emotional stability that she can no longer easily reach, making your presence, when and if you choose to give it, something that must be earned, not expected. You are no longer a petitioner at her gate. You have become the guardian of your own. The silence you have chosen is not an empty space. It is a fertile ground. In the absence of the constant noise, the frantic chasing, and the exhausting analysis of her every move, a profound quiet descends. This quiet is not loneliness. It is solitude. And in this solitude, the energy you were pouring outward, the energy that was being absorbed by a black hole of indifferences, suddenly redirected. It has nowhere to go but inward. This marks the beginning of the most critical phase of the journey, the period where you stop trying to fix the relationship with her, start building a new relationship with yourself. The withdrawal from her approval becomes the deposit into your own foundation. This is not a passive waiting game. It is an active, deliberate process of reconstruction. The mental real estate once occupied by decoding her texts and planning your next move is now cleared for new tenants. Your purpose, your health, your discipline. You begin to pour that reclaimed energy into the gym, not as a form of punishment, but as a physical manifestation of your inner fortitude. You feel the strain in your muscles, the sweat on your brow, and it becomes a tangible metric of your progress. Stark contrast to the intangible, spiraling metrics of her affection. You dive back into your work or your craft, finding flow states where hours pass without a single thought of her. This focused attention begins to bear fruit, a project completed, a skill sharpened, a goal advanced. These are victories that cannot be taken away, validations that are self-generated and self-sustained. As you rebuild externally, a parallel shift occurs internally. Your identity, which had become entangled with being her partner, begins to untangle and re-solidify around its own core. You are no longer the man who is trying to win her back. You are the man who gets up early, who follows his training plan, who is building something meaningful with his hands or his mind. This new self-concept is not dependent on her reflection. You start to remember who you were before her, and more importantly, you begin to see who you can become after her. The need for her to see your value is replaced by the quiet, unshakable knowledge of your own. This is not arrogance. It is sovereignty. It is the understanding that your worth is a fact, not an opinion, and certainly not a verdict she gets to deliver. This inner shift fundamentally changes your energy. The desperation, the neediness, the anxious vibration that repels it dissipates. In its place is a grounded, self-assured calm. You carry a quiet authority that does not demand respect but commands it effortlessly. You stop talking about your value because you are too busy demonstrating it through your actions and your composure. This new energy acts as a filter. You stop attracting chaos and drama because your spirit no longer resonates at that frequency. You are no longer a source of easy validation for those who feed on neediness. Instead, you begin to vibrate at a frequency of stability, and in doing so, you start to attract calmer, more emotionally mature connections are, just as valuably. You become perfectly content in your own company. A crucial part of this transformation is the recalibration of your understanding of love itself. The frantic, all-consuming passion you once mistook for depth is now revealed as what it often was: emotional chaos. You realize that love without respect is not love. It is a form of manipulation, a cage where your peace is the price of admission. The intense chemistry that felt like electricity is now seen as a potential warning sign, a spark that can easily start a fire and burn everything down. You begin to crave alignment over intensity, consistency over excitement. You become loyal to standards, not to potential. You stop making excuses for people who disturb your peace, understanding that a relationship should be a sanctuary, not a rehabilitation project. This is the stage where you truly outgrow the old dynamic. You are no longer the man she once knew. That man was emotionally reactive, his state determined by her whims. The man you are becoming is emotionally responsive, guided by his own principles. When you happen to cross paths, she will sense the difference immediately. It's in your posture, your eye contact, the calm tone of your voice. You don't flinch when she pulls away because your center of gravity is no longer tethered to her. You don't seek her approval because you have become your own source of validation. This is deeply unsettling to someone who was used to having emotional leverage over you. Your calmness becomes a mirror that reflects her own instability. And few people can comfortably hold that gaze. The final, and perhaps most liberating, realization is that this journey was never about winning her back. It was about winning yourself back. The silence, the discipline, the inward focus, it was all in service of reclaiming the parts of yourself you had sacrificed on the altar of her approval. You have learned to value your own peace above the temporary high of her attention. You have learned that solitude is not emptiness, but a space for creation. You have built a life so meaningful and a self so whole that a partner is no longer a necessity to feel complete, but a potential addition to an already abundant existence. You are no longer searching for someone to quench your thirst. You have become your own well. And that is the most powerful transformation of all. The transformation is complete. The turmoil that once felt like a permanent storm has given way to a profound and unshakable stillness. This is not the quiet of exhaustion or surrender, but the vibrant, living silence of a mountain immovable, deeply rooted and unaffected by the weather that passes over its surface. You no longer seek peace as a destination. You have become its embodiment. The frantic energy of chasing, the desperate need for closure, the obsessive analysis of another's feelings, these are not just behaviors you've abandoned. They are frequencies your spirit can no longer receive. You have graduated from a participant in emotional chaos to an observer of it, watching the dramas of others with a sense of detached compassion, understanding the patterns but feeling no urge to step into the play. This inner sovereignty reshapes your entire existence. You move through the world with a new kind of intention. There is a weight to your silence now, a gravity in your presence that people feel when you enter a room. You no longer speak to fill the space or to prove your intelligence. Your words become measured, deliberate, and carry more impact because they are born of thought, not of a need for validation. You listen not just to reply, but to truly understand, your mind effortlessly filtering out the noise from the substance. This grounded energy commands a quiet respect without you ever having to demand it. People sense the boundaries you hold simply by the way you carry yourself. They understand intuitively that your time, your attention, and your peace are sacred currencies, and access to them must be earned. Your perspective on the past undergoes a radical shift. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the confusion, you no longer view them as tragedies that happened to you, but as necessary lessons that happened for you. She was not the villain in your story, nor were you merely a victim. She was the catalyst, the mirror that reflected back to you every crack in your own foundation. Every place where you had abandoned yourself in the hope of being chosen. You feel no bitterness, only a deep and genuine gratitude. The pain was the fire that burned away the weaker version of yourself, forging in its place a man of principle and resilience. You understand that you were never losing her. You were finding yourself. You were never abandoned. You were being redirected toward your true path. Every tear shed was a baptism, and every moment of silence that followed was a prayer that built the sanctuary you now inhabit. This transcendence extends to your understanding of love and connection. You are no longer impressed by surface-level beauty, flashy charm, or the intense, volatile chemistry that once masqueraded as passion. You see these for what they often are: distractions, temporary highs that inevitably lead to emotional crashes. Instead, you are drawn to a different energy altogether: emotional regulation, maturity, and a profound sense of calm. You seek a partner whose peace can dance with your own, not one whose chaos will demand that you drown with them. You move slowly and deliberately, for you have learned that anything real does not need to be forced. True connection unfolds naturally when two whole people choose to walk side by side, neither leaning too heavily on the other. The women from your past, the ones who once held your emotional fate in their hands, may eventually feel the weight of your absence. It will not be a dramatic longing, but a quiet, persistent phantom limb of a connection they once had, but failed to value. They will try to recreate the feeling of safety and grounding you provided with others, but it will never feel the same. They will realize, perhaps too late, that they didn't leave because you weren't enough. They left because they mistook your stability for boredom and confused the thrill of the chase for the substance of love. Your silent departure becomes the one lesson they cannot unlearn. Your peace becomes the standard against which they measure every fleeting excitement, and everything else falls short. Ultimately, you arrive at the most liberating truth of all: you are free. You are free from the need for external validation to feel valuable. You are free from the addiction to another's approval. You are free from the fear of loss, because you have learned that the only thing you truly possess is yourself. And that is the one thing you have now mastered. A man who has conquered his own emotions doesn't just win in love. He wins in life. He is rare. He is magnetic. He is the calm in the center of the storm. And he knows with unshakable certainty that his worth was never hers to give, only his to build, protect, and embody. This is not the end of a story about losing a woman. It is the beginning of a story about a man who found himself, and in doing so, became everything he was ever searching for.